Hey guys, Stable here. Today we got to look at the new Warhammer 40,000 battleships, the American version, Ignis Purgatio. I got Sims on the screen here. I switched Sims for this game. I'd been previously using the new Warhammer 40,000 American Battleship Commander in this one, and the Japanese one in the Ragnarok, the Japanese version. I wasn't really having a lot of success with either of those. Now, maybe I don't have them set up correctly or whatever, but I put Sims in for this game, played it more traditionally, like a longer range American or Japanese battleship. This one's modeled after the Nagato, the Tier 6 Japanese tech tree battleship, so it's similar. We'll compare the stats to it in a little bit here, but it works out a lot better. So I don't know. The problem with those Warhammer Commander things, the commanders are, they have these kind of dynamically activated perks, which, for instance, one of them, the Japanese one, his main strength is when you pop the plane duration is drastically reduced, but for the duration the plane is up, any damage you deal is enhanced by 20% as a battleship. So you kind of have to hold on to the plane until you get the perfect shot, launch the plane, then hope you actually hit it. Now, these ships, like any battleship, the longer range you are, the less accurate the guns are. And, for that reason alone, you kind of just tend to try and close them a little bit. But this ship is about as heavily armored as the Danae, and it's constantly up tiered. Tier 6 currently right now is usually pulled up into Tier 7 matches. It's just the nature of the beast, due to the fact that Tier 7 has nowhere to go but down right now. Once the legendary tier is introduced, Tier 7's mostly going to be playing against legendary tier ships, or it'll be more evenly split at least until more and more people get the legendary tier, but we're going to be seeing less Tier 6 pull upward. So I think the Tier 6 premiums in general should increase in value as the legendary tier becomes more and more implemented. But the Tier 7 battleships, most if not all of them can just overmatch this armor from pretty much any angle and just kick the crap out of it. So I don't like a battleship that really can't take a hit even if it's well angled. It makes it very, very difficult to play for sure. So for that reason I wasn't having a lot of fun. But now I put Sims in here, this game ended up going a lot better. So maybe I just need to keep working on my builds or whatever. So coming up on this next sequence, we'll see it a couple times. It's a move I'm working on now where we fire at this York and then I'm going to deselect them. And what we're doing is countering the possibility of these cruisers having the commanders. Usually it's under the perk Ingenious, but the Americans have another option on their builds. But when they're targeted, i.e. when they're selected, when the circle's around their icon like that, a number can pop up on their screen if they have the build that supplies this information to them, and then it'll say one person targeting you, 2, 3, 4, however many people. So while I'm waiting for these guns to reload, or while that shot was in the air against the York, we deselect, and we want to have these people selected as little as possible, because the longer it's on there, the more likely they are to notice it, and the more likely after they are to react. So you see there we get a couple nice wicked salves on those cruisers. And again, that's a move I'm working on implementing. I'm going to try and incorporate it in my game. It's a very nuanced move. Again, you're banking on countering a possible build that you have no way of verifying whether they actually are even using or not. So it's may not be the most important move known to man, but I think it should be effective in the cases that they are running those perks, because, of course, if it's not saying they're targeted, or even if they see it briefly, but then it flashes away, they might be like, someone glanced at my health, but then they moved on to someone else, so they might gain more confidence in their position, less likely to react. So it's kind of an interesting way to counter, potential information that the enemy might have. A lot of this game is information and utilizing it. Spotting provides information, Ingenious, Twist and Track, all these things are sources of information. And if you can kind of muddy the waters for the enemy and limit what they can tell about what's going on, all the more, all the better. So anyway, something to think about. Here we're I'm keeping an eye on the map here. I'm seeing where my other battleship is. We have 2 battleships on our team here, and I want to create distance. You see this all the time where the battleships clump up. Extremely ineffective. You might as well just remove one of them from the game, because when they're clumped up together, we talk about it all the time. The enemies can angle against both of them at the same time, and they're very easy to counter. So if you create space between the battleships, then let's say they angle at me, the battleship, down the way on my team, if he's paying attention, could shoot at the broadside, and vice versa. If they're angling at the battleship on my team, then we're going to get these broadsides. And you can see on the map here, we do have a lot of broadsides previously spotted on their team. So I'm going to be trying to move forward as aggressively as I can. I'm desperately calling them to get on C. Not that I really care about the cap. Yeah, we want it. But primarily what I want them to do is push forward, get that destroyer spotted and sighted, because that destroyer is kind of what's checking me from moving south here. If I can get south around this big island that we're kind of working our way around here, then we'll have access to pretty much the entire team, and we should be able to wreck them. The problem for these guys is, and I understand their reticence, there's a battleship kind of playing behind that island. We don't have great intelligence on what he's up to, and they're squishy cruisers, so if they push into him, the destroyer is presumably spotting us all here, and then, they move up, the battleship recognizes an opportunity, punishes them, then we're going to have a problem. So I'm going to try and angle towards, I believe it's in Arizona here. We're still going to try and take some of these shots whenever they pop up here, but I want to move forward, try and help them with this Arizona, get rid of him as quick as possible, then they can focus on the destroyer, if they're even aware that he's over there. You never know what you're going to get. Anyway, I suppose we should compare this to Nagato. Now, the Ignis and the Ragnarok both have the same stats. Mine are a little different because of the commander builds, but compared to the Nagato, base HP on this is 50,000. Nagato, I got it 65,000 on my build. Same guns, better range on the Nagato by 0.6, better reload on this one and the Ragnarok, so just better reload in general. Better turret traverse on both of them. Much higher damage, about 1,800 per AP shell on this for full penetrations or for citadel shots. So, fairly significant, probably about a 10, 15, 20% increase on damage, whatever it is. Speed, a little bit better on these event ships or the Warhammer ships. Same turret turn radius, better rudder shift on these ones, better detection by 0.6. So, on paper, aside from the massive difference in the health, which is extreme, I don't know if the armor is the exact same. I don't play the Nagato a whole lot these days. If I'm going to run a high-tier Japanese battleship, I'll usually just run the Yamagi, because I do like that ship quite a bit. Nagato, I don't remember being able to get blown up from any and all angles by Tier 7 battleships. Maybe I need to start shooting it a little more aggressively when it's angled and test that. But let's just assume the armor is the same, but the health pool is dramatically different. So, this thing just can't sustain major attacks. So you kind of have to play it in the background. Again, though, if you're going to run the Warhammer builds, at least how I think they're intended to be played, based on their perks available, what they're kind of promoting, what's unique about them, I think they're trying to be played a little bit more closer range, in which, especially the Japanese one, which is more of a Kondo version of a battleship commander than Takagi. But if you're going to do it like that, you're going to be closer range. If you get focused in the ship, you're just going to get absolutely wrecked. So I don't particularly enjoy playing this at all with the Leon character running it. Now, I think there's room for the Leon and the other, the cold guy, Arthas, I think his name is. I think they're interesting in terms of inspirations and potentially even commanders on certain ships, but I just don't think it works out on these knockoff Nagatos just due to the squishiness. I don't like to promote pulling closer to these engagements with the ship. This ship tends to play pretty well. You can see we're keeping these ships pretty well in between our max firing range and our view range, so that if we need to disengage, we can disengage, and we're keeping them at a range, making their shots, the incoming battleship shots, less accurate, less effective. So maybe I just wasn't playing it correctly earlier on or whatever, but for whatever reason, Sims just seems to promote better play on this particular ship. The voice acting on those commanders is really good, I'll say, which maybe I got a game in the Ragnarok. I had decent games, maybe 100k damage games in both of those ships. So I'll look through the footage I got and see if there's anything decent in that ship with the other commander in it, just so you can hear the voices, because that is a cool part of the package. But these ships, like I said, they're the same ship, just different skins. So if you're buying it just to get a tier 6 premium battleship, you don't necessarily need both of them. If you're a huge Warhammer 40,000 fan, which I know a lot of you guys are, or you just like the look of both of them, then you can get them both. But you're just essentially buying them for cosmetic reasons at that point. Just keep that in mind. Here to close this game out, though, we got the King George. You can see on the map, it doesn't look like he's that short of being perfectly broadside on the screen, but this is, of course, better to when it's better to look at the map. You can see on the map he's about a 45-degree angle there. So battleships at long ranges kind of often have these optical illusions, especially the longer ones where they seem more broadside. So I should either be switching to HE here or aiming for, upper belt superstructure type shots, testing some out towards the waterline, seeing if I can hit him. Of course, I'm moving left to right, he's moving right to left, so the longer that goes on, the more and more broadside he'll naturally be. But anyway, so here we end up with about 160k damage, I think, which by far the most I've squeezed out of this. I played both versions of the ship roughly 8-10 times, let's say, so far, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I wasn't having a lot of fun with them previously. This game I did enjoy just because it went well, but maybe it's just all the tier 7 games and the fact that this just doesn't really do that well in tier 7. I can't really think, running through the ship roster in my mind, I can't think of a whole lot of ships that jump out at me as like, oh, doesn't really do that well when it's up tiered. Unlike the PC, those ships go up 2 tiers, so some of those ships suffer greatly, when they're bottom tier. But our version, we'll only have 1 tier, unless you're in a failed platoon, of course. So most ships I don't really mind. But anyway, this one, at the end of the day, I think these are more of collector's ships. I don't think they're the best ships known to man. I don't think the commanders are the best commanders known to man in terms of game performance, but aesthetically or sonically or whatever, they are pretty cool in their own right. So anyway, that's a look at the Ignis Purgatio for you. If you did like it, please hit the thumbs up. New to the channel, subscribe. Questions, comments, leave them below, and we'll see you all later. All right, peace.